Did it. All right. What's up, y'all? Thoughtforms class two. Um, I shared a little bit. This is definitely like deep. These are definitely things that um, I have to give like a little timeline for things, right? Where I'm like, oh my God, this technique will take this long. Um, and I've seen it happen enough times that I'm like, there's like a nice little um guesstimation, right? Of like what, how long something will take, right? With emotions. I think like 2 to 3 years of like you meet your core wounding, your core abandonment. I think in some of my other classes I'd be like, you finally find the mom-shaped hole in your heart, you know? And then once you like get to the place where you're just like, fuck, this whole time I've just wanted mom's love or dad's love, and then, right? And I'm saying like that takes a while to get there, right? Where you're like, wait a second, I keep date. This is hard to say out loud, right? But you're like, I keep dating the same person, and we're like, that's odd. And then one day you're like, wait a second, they're very similar to my parent, And then you're like, "Hmm." Right? And it's also like a thing in therapy, right? Like it's like a whole complex that was named by Freud, right? And no one really like follows Freud's kind of like system anymore, but it was highly influential, right? And but yeah, when I'm online and people are like, "Oh my God, I love this person so much," and I just feel home with them. They remind me of my mom. I'm like, you should. I'm like, you ever get bored? You should do a little bit of Google searching around therapy, different models. Um, so, anyways, so um, yeah, I'd say 2 to 3 years, right? Once you find that like dad-shaped hole that we tried to fill with everything, right? Like with, substances, with people, with experiences, with money, what else? Uh, with like risk-taking behaviors in general, achievements, right? High fives, degrees, certifications, right? Like, that unraveling just takes time, and I've seen it, right? Like, we can work really hard and like not have that much pain, right? And then like it'd be like a 1.5, 2 year project, right? And then if we have a lot of pain, those of us, right, then like it maybe takes a little bit longer. And it doesn't mean we've healed, right? It doesn't mean we're like a completed, marble statue of perfection, right? But within like 2, 3 years, let's say, like we can really get to that core wound that we're always trying to avoid, right? That we've like squished. Um, and that one thing that we're kind of constantly trying to fulfill, maybe we could say, right? Um, and then with thought forms, this is so big, I don't have a guesstimation yet. I haven't, I haven't like shared it enough and seen people like knock it out of the park enough times that I'm like, oh shit, it's a 3 year or it's a 5 year. I have supported a lot of people in like healing core wounds. Um, so we're experimenting. I'm trying to see how long it'll take us to get something this big, this vague, this like amorphous, and then that it's like this fundamental, that it shapes this much of our world, right? So who knows? It could be really quick, right? It is also like a really specific range of energies, which is also really important. And we're gonna actually explore that today. We're gonna kind of look at the range of energies and look at things like color, quality, like texture, as we're like looking at the collective thought forms, right, of the world right now, right, today, and then like the collective thought forms of, you know, men, male identified folks, right? Like maybe you're in patriarchy, we could mold into that, right? Like the socialization and the messages of men receive. Um, right? That's gonna have a different size, shape, texture to like the messages I got at home, right, growing up, right? Messages I got from my cousins, relatives, neighbors, peers in middle school, right? Both might equally shape our world though, right? But you're gonna find them in a different place, right? Like, right, again, for me, right, growing up and receiving a lot of really specific messages from being a man, being male, being a boy, right? Who knows? Um, like maybe those are gonna be like at my throat, right? Maybe as I like have it real emotions, right? Like maybe they're gonna feel like a mask over my face. But um, like the specific messages my dad gave me about being a man, right? Those I might find like in my spine, right? Like in my belly, right? And inverse, right? Like I'm just giving examples, right? But it's often really easy to kind of like either smush them all together, right? Where we're like the patriarchy, and then we're like you just like start pointing. We're like Disney and the movies and TV, right? Like you're like because it does, it's overwhelming, right? But actually letting them be like letting there be a nuance, right? Like again, maybe if I look at those specific messages my father gave me, right? There's the totality of the socialization of young men, right? That you need a college degree to know, right? Like that shit gets complicated and like really, really technical, right? But then like specifically, right, for me, it'd be like my father wanted me to be strong, not emotional. Um, I think on some level, my dad wanted me to be prideful, right? Like I think my father's own shame required. Oh my God, there's a couple of mosquito in here. Damn it, it's mosquito season already. I can hear him buzzing. But my father's own shame required that I be like prideful, for his sacrifices to be enough. Maybe I could say, right? So that package, right? I might be like, oh, it's like this size, this shape. I feel it in my tummy. I might be like, it's got reds and greens, right? Temperature, I might be like, it's kind of like towards the warm side. Um, maybe I'm like, it's got a little bit of like some jagged corners, but nothing too sharp, nothing too crazy, right? But then let's say like um if we grew up in a specific tradition or lineage or church, and we'll also do past lives with this stuff later, but we'll ease into it, right? But I might look at the messages I received from like Catholicism, and if there were specific messages I got around masculinity there, right? And there's going to be a completely different texture, shape, direction, right? Those are actually kind of like, well, like to me, they're just like a really specific assault on authenticity. Um, right? Like maybe we could be like my father, his own trauma, but it's quite maybe in some level like in current time, right? He's like, I want you to have money, I want you to be happy. Maybe ideas of who I should be married to, ideas of how I should spend my time, right? The church messages, right? They're just like, been like that for about 1,000 years. Um, and then if I look at what's happening right now in the collective masculine experience, collective masculine fears, tantrums, maybe it's a better way to say that. Terror, right? Very different shape, very different size, very different quality. And I'm plugged into each of them, right? And I'm subscribed in different ways to each of them, right? So, like, I might have like very vivid, real memories of my dad's expectations of me. And while like it's quite amorphous to look at how media has shaped us, right? That's going to be like a little more nuanced, right? That's going to be like, right? We would have to be like, what was it like the 150 different movies that you watched from 5 to 15, what did you get from those movies, right? Like it's a little too big, too vague, right? And you'd be like, well, what did you learn from, like, one of my favorite movies growing up was like Hercules, right? I'm like, what did you learn from Hercules? I'm like, work hard, be good, right? And they'd be like, cool, but like, what was the cost of those messages? I'm like, ooh, right? I'm like, yes, you learned that, but did you learn anything else? Right? I might be like, oh, I also learned like don't ask for help. I also learned that like, like it's okay to be the outsider so long as you win, so long as you become a god, right? Like it's okay to be weak, if in the at the beginning, right? But then like it requires us to like be better than maybe, right? A little more insidious, right? A little more maybe dark even, right? Like what we learn from different Disney movies, right? But we have to have like a really kind of sharp analysis, right? So instead, if we just look at these like bigger bubbles, then again we can look at like how they're plugging in. And it could be again that like three different bubbles are tied to my need to overachieve, right? So heart, I was like, mom shaped hole in my heart. And I'm like, not only am I enough, mom, I'm actually like super enough. I happen to be like one of the most enough people you'll meet. I'm like, oh, this certificate, this old thing. Yeah, yeah, I just, oh, no, definitely you can hold it. um, and sometimes, right, we're so desperate to be enough. Sometimes we're like, I'm actually even better than other people, right? Um, and that need, well, let's say maybe unmet need, has specific stories with my interactions with my family, with my peers, siblings, right? With media, with religion, now with spiritual traditions, right? But, well, in other classes, right? I'm always like, go to the core, right? I'm always like, heal the hurt, hold the pain, find the not enoughness, right? But here, I'm like, let yourself follow those tentacles and and hear the big story that's happening, right? And let's say if you tune into the collective right now, you'll hear and feel the big terror moving through different bodies, right? So again, my lived experience of not being enough, right? That I got from parents that didn't know how to be enough, so they weren't able to give me enoughness, right? Like my parents couldn't give me enoughness because they didn't have it to. They were too busy trying to be perfect parents. And then when I was like, ouch, they were like, no, no, no. They're like, that's your fault. And if you ever try to hold your parents accountable, if anyone's ever tried to give your parents feedback, it's often like, like it often doesn't even work, right? They're like, you know, um, one time I tried to talk to my parents about how much violence I saw growing up. And they were like, really? All those hours we left you alone because we were both working, bad things happened. And I'm like, yeah, a lot of bad things happened. And they were like, but you were never hungry. You had clothes, you know? And I was like, no, yeah, for sure. I had clothes and food. I'm like, but there were shootings. I was like, that there were shootings. And they were like, yeah, but you were never hungry. Right. And what they're trying to say is like, we were hungry, right? We didn't have clothes. You got to have clothes, And then I'm like, yeah, dad, but like you weren't able to ever say, I love you. And he's just like, but I like worked so you could have clothes. Like, what do you mean? And I'm like, emotions, I'm like words of affirmation, right? I'm like different, different on the hierarchy of needs, dad. There's like a Maslow hierarchy of need pyramid, but my dad's like, you got to have things I didn't get to have, right? And so I've tried, right? I've tried to hold my parents accountable, give them feedback, right? And it's just like the saddest thing ever, they're just like, wow. we're so sorry. And I'm like, damn, this isn't like taking care of any needs for me right now. I'm like, I really, wow, and then you end up taking care of it. Yeah, exactly. You're right. Yeah, like I'm trying to like explain to them, like value and appreciate them, which I do, right? And also that was her, but we people, it's quite tragic, this people thing, right? Like we all have the same needs. We all desperately want to be loved. We want to get like high fives from each other. And yet like we can't help but make these like really big messes, and like deeply hurt and like betray and abandon one another, as we play out like these really big stories of like love, pain, forgiveness, shame, hurt, desire, all these things, right? We're just like, it's wild. It's wild, this human experience, right? But um maybe seems disconnected, right? But actually all of these have collective bubbles, right? Congealed story that goes way, way back. And we're tied into these stories of love, of betrayal, right? So here, maybe if I stay with this example of like love, right? My dad was like, yeah, but like I gave you clothes and food and money. Like, obviously I loved you, right? But me, I might be like, yeah, but like it would have been awesome to like have gotten to play with you, you know? Um, yeah, I have a lot of pain with like how my dad tried to play with me but didn't know how, right? But again, right there, right? It's like he didn't know how, and I can find it could be a chord, right? But when we're thinking about thought forms, right? I almost want us to think about like a little tentacle, almost like a little tether of my dad gave me the thing he thought I wanted, but couldn't provide the thing I needed, right? Because also he could have worked that much and then like hugged me, right? Wouldn't have killed him, right? But he thought after working, an 8 hour day, 12 hour day, right, that he had like, like, ugh, just like, yeah, took care of them. Um, and that is a story around, maybe we could say around like masculinity, right? It could be a story around, um, well, his own overachieving, his own enoughness, right? And I'm connected to it, right? There's like a rope, a tether to it. Um, like I'm gonna say this in a lot of different ways because thought forms like are very, very subtle. So um this has now created for me a story to swim through around lovability, how to be worthy of love, right? So now for me to be worthy of love, it is now connected to doing, because my father's love of me was actionable, task oriented, job oriented, like function oriented, right? So like now I'm tied to it too, right? Because he's like, I worked all these hours and hated this job, right? And drank a lot because I hated it for you, mijo, right? And I'm just like, thanks, dad, thanks, papa, right? I'm like 5, right? Right. And so now I'm like, cool. Now I know how to be lovable, right? On some level, right? There's a transmission, right? Um, and so maybe with moms, right? There's something around like mom's ability to take care of these dads, right? And it can be very gendered, very binary, very cis, right? But if if we were to look at it from this lens, right, of like mom's ability to take care of dad, and again, this isn't always the case, but if we looked, right, then is also transmitted to us unconsciously. No one sits us down, right? My father never sat me down to be like, hey, Ken, if you overachieve, you'll be enough, right? And I was like, thanks, father. Coloring, right? That didn't happen, right? But I experienced, I experienced. 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 I ex Um, I was punished when I wasn't hardworking. Ooh, I kind of froze a little bit. Are we doing good? Okay. Right. Like, um, when I wasn't acting in alignment with the thought forms, I would feel their brunt, their weight, right? Which we'll point out today. It'll kind of veil us. Um, a couple of things happen, like pressure will increase often in our crown, and like different spaces. So we're gonna talk about that along with feeding them. But again, it was never explicit, but it's very much implicit, right? When I was hardworking, I'd get lots of high fives. When I was playing video games, I'd be shamed, right? Watching TV, and this is absolutely the case, right? Like my dad, anytime my dad came home, right, I could like tell by how he set his keys down of whether or not like I should run and clean my room, right? If he closed the door really loud, set his keys down loud, I was like, oh fuck, right? I'm like, you better not say much. You better have good grades. Your room better be clean, right? Um, because like the brunt of these ideas, stories, um, was what I was reacting to, right? And from this lens, right? There's interpersonal, yes, right? But I'm saying like the brunt of my father's subscription to overwork to be enough, overwork to be a man, to take care of your family. Oh no, I keep lagging. Um, like I was plugged into that as well. Yeah. And then now uh there's a subscription in here to something that has existed maybe with this thought form, right? It might be like industrial revolution, right? Who knows? Maybe 1800s, maybe early 1900s, right? But certainly my dad didn't make up overworking to be enough, right? Y'all's moms and dads didn't make up overworking to be enough. Uh, y'all's moms and dads didn't make up people pleasing to be enough and be lovable, right? These are collective, but certainly we have inherited it, right? And that's what we're trying to look at, right? So last week we were like, there's symbols of this, right? And that symbol could be again like, um, oh my God, I saw there's like a really funny meme, and these are all triggering, which I apologize. Well, I don't apologize. I'm sorry you're triggered, but I like to trigger. I'm just kidding. I mean, that's what you signed up for. But somebody made like a little video, and it's problematic, right? But they're like, why does everyone who is polyamorous look like they're polyamorous? And a bunch of people like copied it, right? And they were like, I'm polyamorous and I don't, and then they're like, fuck, well, this outfit is very polyamorous, but if you look around and they're like, man, fuck you, and they like stop the video, and then people will keep copying it, and they're like, man, this guy's good. Okay, well, hey, we're gonna regroup at 2026. We're gonna look real different, man. So hilarious. A lot of people were like took it in stride and were really funny about it. But actually, it's because of symbols, right? Like, how do I know somebody drinks at a microbrewery? They let you know they drink at a microbrewery, right? You know who does yoga, right? They're just like, they have the I do yoga posture. They're just like, wow, I'm just gonna really drink that in. Right? That's how they know. Right? That's how they let you know, right? But here, right? We could even get into like somehow my father let me know that my enoughness required overworking. Somehow, not in a posture I could name, right? But maybe in tension in his jaw, right? Maybe somehow in like his inability to smile or play. Let me know my lovability was only when I worked, right? I mean, my dad, this is like a true story. My dad, he used to like work the craziest hours get home, and then over the weekend we would do hella yard work. My dad also did a lot of construction, so like I'd be like helping him build fences and walls, and which this are skills I really love, right? Um, but you know, if I got tired and went inside, which I never did, right? Somehow I knew not to, right? The times that my dad like spanked me, right? If I cried and went to my mom, I would probably get spanked again, right? And somehow, again, these weren't even options in my body, right? So somehow, like, but even my conscious thought process already negated from it was entire aspects of my wholeness, right? Like, my only options were like how to be a man while being spanked, not how to be human, right? Not how to be disappointed and sad, right? It was already like, and I knew there was many examples. I have many intense examples, right? Of like my dad would kind of like hurt me to teach me hard work. And I already knew how to like fit that shape because it was already transmitted, but too subtle. The rope that's tied from my father's waist to mine that says work hard to be enough was transmitted unconsciously, secretly, we could even say, right? But to articulate it right, it might be like, right, I'm playing inside, my dad ignores me, he's just watching TV, drinking or something, right? And then I'm like helping him make a little, fence. I'm digging a hole, and he's just like, "Oh my God, you're so strong. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for helping me." Then he could love me, right? And then like, right, like that tension's now there, and we're gonna look at right that color, that shape, that texture, that story is now there, right? Um, so I hope this is making sense. Um, but very different, right? Than like maybe the collective messages um, that are happening at like, we're thinking like, uh, well, we could think really, really zoomed out. Like there's global stories like colonization, right? Colonization, imperialism are collective stories that maybe go back 2,000 years, right? Like it is a big shaper of worlds, imperialism and colonization, right? Patriarchy is another one, right? We could think like how capitalism is shaping the world, right? And so these are really big, zoomed out, again, now bigger than religion, bigger than media, right? These are like the things that are anchoring bigger stories, right? So I hope that makes sense. And we don't have to get like really, really big. Unless, I mean, you guys are all capable practitioners. We could get those big, right? Um, but we're just trying to see like these layers of maybe I want to see like the web, like the energetic story web context that I'm in, right? Because I'm teaching this class tied to my father's hopes, dreams, fears, stories, tied to Brown stories, fears, hurt, heartbreak, dreams as well. I grew up Catholic, right? Not very good at it, me now, right? But there's Catholicism flowing in here somewhere behind like a shoulder, right? Behind my ear. And it only comes up when I'm like, you know, buying something at the store. That little web pulls on me. It darkens my authenticity and choice, right? Uh, right, because I'm 35. I left home right when I was 18. Like I like did go back a little bit every once in a while, but like my brother and I left when we were 18. Like we moved out, right? But somehow, right, if I put my legs up to watch TV, my dad's transmission of work hard to be enough pulls, and I have to get up and do something. Yeah. So somehow capitalism pulls on this. Somehow imperialism just has a little pull, right? And I'm like, you know what? Let me take a picture with a baby, a brown or black baby for Instagram. You know, I'm like, let me help some. Let me go to Africa to take care of some kids real quick, just to let my followers know I care, right? Let me virtue signal a little, right? Um, and these things are being named, right? But people now are like, that's imperialism, right? And we might be like, well, that's a big stretch, right? But maybe not that big, actually, right? Like maybe, especially our partners, right? Our partners might be like, hey, why don't you ever feel enough? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm totally enough. I'm actually better than enough. I'm like, this certificate. I took a whole course on enoughness, right? I'm a therapist, right? Who knows how we do it, right? I teach people enoughness, right? Um, is somebody just plugging our thought form and actually maybe even the thought form response, right? If you try to call out imperialism, you will feel the weight of imperialism. A captain imperialist will manifest, right? Same thing, right? Like, and again, these are symbolic, right? We're not looking at individual men, right? We're looking at the collective male weight of that patriarchal power difference, right? And so with this, there's like a really funny, also like a little video where someone is like, hey, trigger warning, just to say, and they're like, not, but they're just like, have you ever noticed how like sensitive men are with feedback, right? And they're like at the park, right? And it's adorable, right? And like literally, like men are like rising up from like the trees to be like, "That's not true. It's actually not sensitivity." And they're like rebuttaling, and she's just like they're like falling from the sky to be like, "No, it's not that we're sensitive. It's just like men actually really appreciate and value efficiency, right?" And it was like the most hilarious example of right, like male fragility. It's called, right? We've got words for it now, right? But if you try to point out male fragility, you will feel the weight of male patriarchal, the weight of those thought forms, the brunt of that power. Yeah. And I'm saying in us, it's also true, right? That like, if I try to be like, well, fuck hard work, I just want to rest, I'll also start 3 projects that night. Yeah. Somebody's like, okay, that's enough. Somebody's like, all right, let's chill with this class, buddy. Right? No, right. So right. So I'm like, fuck capitalism. I'm quitting my job. I'm gonna start my own business making candles, but then I have to like make 38 different candles and they're all scented. And then I have to like start a project and then a self-portrait and then take classes on candle making to make them all these different ways. Yes, thank you. Somebody put like buy 6 books, right? And so that's because although I'm like, fuck you to patriarchy, right? My subscription is intact. I'm still veiled by its programs. Its thought forms are still rattling around again, maybe like I say, my enoughness being like, yeah, you don't have to work for corporate America, but if you're going to work for yourself, you better do it like this. Yeah. And again, could be healthy, right? Like our dads could be like, you know, I want you to be the best, right? And you're like, I want to be the best, right? And it could be, let's say, like connected, tied to our authenticity, right? Where like we genuinely want to achieve for like the feeling of contribution, right? But if it's keeping me from authenticity, then with thought forms, right, it's connected to a global human exploration, right? So this is now the next piece of info, right? Is that humans are exploring not enoughness. And not enoughness as it flows through different social identities, right? So like not enoughness as it flows through like male bodies, female bodies, non-binary bodies, right? Like um all all, let's see, like humanity is exploring this not enoughness and all these social constructs, right? And not enoughness for a Catholic is slightly different in texture, you know, than not enoughness for a Protestant, right? One's like, and the other, like, this is actually quite connected to like achievement, right? So like, they might like make more money or be ashamed that they're not making more money. Catholics, right? Remember, like, let me make a couple more babies and like whip myself a little bit more to show God, right? So, um, yeah. So again, in energy work, I'm often like, I'm like, why? Let's talk about this heart, sorry, this mom-shaped hole in your heart, right? Here, I'm like, zoom out and let's hear these stories. Let's really lean in, right? And if I lean into my father's stories, right, is that if I overgive, overdo, overproduce, not just produce, overproduce, then like I'll be loved and then I'll get to rest. But life being what it is, there's always something to do. And there's not really many moments that I let myself be loved, right? I let myself be loved for a second when I graduated, when, you know, when we start a relationship, when we get married, when we get a raise, right? Like there's a little moment that you can let yourself be loved and relaxed. But the rest of the time, I need to be overdoing, right? And that would be if I tune into the story. And then guess what? That story is like the missing puzzle piece to my father's pain. Yeah. Like he's like overworked to be enough, then you'll get to like relax and receive, right? And then as I find the missing piece of being like, yeah, but like those moments are so few and far between. And I might even be like, and your lovability is like innate, right? And as I share that innate lovability, right? Um, you know, like negative one and positive one, they'll come in and they might even self-destruct. Yeah. Because if I said something that was like, I said it kind of like quickly, but there's a concept, it's a Buddhist concept, but it's that like things will dissolve under analysis. And it's that with thought forms in particular, right? If you debate with a thought form enough, it will share with you its promise and it will also dissolve as being profoundly limiting, right? Because I don't know if anyone here has ever worked their ass off, fundamentally like compromised, yourself to demonstrate to others that you're lovable and had it produce love consistently and produce love consistently that we could receive. Right? I've certainly given, and I've given in some really big and wild ways. How many times that generosity has produced the lasting love that I desperately wanted in that giving has been pretty close to zero, actually. Right? Has anyone ever like people pleased into producing the relationship of their dreams or people pleased into like the job that you always wanted? I'm open. Tell me. Sure haven't. Yeah. Sure do not. Only my grandest illusion. Yeah, you're like, and then I wake up, sweaty and late for work, right? Oh, yeah, that's what's up, brother. Yeah. Somebody put a little sad face. Oh, I know. But really, that's like I think the with thought forms, right? Like Here we're going to look at like what are the ropes, tethered cords that are subtle, right? These are very subtle. I don't know how deep the rabbit hole goes yet, to be honest. It's deep. I have fun. I'm sharing it with more people. I think more people are becoming like sensitive enough. I think also like thought forms are getting so heavy in the collective that I think it's like time to work through them. But I've been at this for a minute, and it just that rabbit hole keeps going, right? So but that's how we would kind of prompt it, right? That's how we would challenge these thought forms to hear again. So I'm gonna try to find the color, texture, flavor. Right? I'm like, wow, Catholicism, it's got a truffle, aftertaste. I'm like, it's a little bitter on the front end, but it's almost like a truffle. Right. And I'm like, my dad's trauma. I'm like, it's spicy. Right. Um, right. So I can find that texture and I'm gonna lean into the story there, right? And right, for my father or my lineage's pain, right? It literally might be, again, for me, it'd be like if you work hard enough, you'll have a family that loves you, kids that love you, a home that's beautiful. Right. And I might be like, to have those things, I definitely have to be responsible to them. And I definitely have to like bust ass to care for those things. And I can most consistently do that if I also get to rest. Right. If I also get to receive that love. If I also get to say no. Right. And this now is like, like the whole thought form will begin to crumble. Versus if I just try to rest and also be hardworking. Right? Like it doesn't really work. Right. That again, that's resisting. We talked about that last week. That's like my dad's like work hard, and I'm like, fuck you, dad. I'm not gonna have a job. And then like, I become an artist and then I'm starving. So then I have to like paint a lot in a way that I don't like, not make that much money, not really even get to be an artist. Right. But I'm still saying fuck you to dad. Right. And I sure showed him. Right. So again, I'm not resisting, I'm not subscribing. We're gonna meet these thought forms, allow them to be like, I like the word analysis, right? But maybe if that's a good word, right? Like I'm gonna let myself like analyze and like learn this thought form, learn its promises, learn what its story is, um, and then allow myself to like ride in on it. And then I'm gonna recall my energies from it, give it its energies back. I'm gonna respect my pops, right? If my pops wants to stay connected to that, he has for the last 60 years of his life, right? And especially like our parents, often people are like, oh my God, our parents are like enmeshed and they're codependent. I'm like, yeah, duh. I'm like, because they're parents, right? You're like, they're fucking, from a completely different generation and moment in time, you know. Um, yeah, like that's I don't know if I can't think of many parents, right, who have like healthy, mutually attentive relationships where their whole self is present. I know a lot of parents that try to have that, um, but yeah, but like are like have big flaws that the other person sometimes nitpicks, sometimes reflects differently, right? But anyways, you're right, like they're tied together in weird, odd ways, right? So we're gonna respect that, but I'm gonna separate from that thought form. I'm gonna respect that thought form, and then we're just gonna share the tools that we learned and just put them in that space, right? So if my dad does want to learn how to be enough, I'm just gonna put a little enoughness example outside of his space, right? So when they're ready in this lifetime or other lifetimes, they can find enoughness, right? Um, I can learn to say no at my workplace. I don't have to force my coworkers to say no. I also, by learning to say no, I can't expect my boss to ever stop inviting me to fundamentally compromise my values or go back on my no, right? The really cool thing about thought forms is they will always take you back, like a problematic ex. They'll always be ready for that that midnight text message. The what you doing text message. Thought forms will always answer the what you doing tonight. They always have time for that shit. On standby, exactly, right? They're always like, would you be interested in like yeah, still yeah. They're always like, would you be interested in fundamentally compromising your values, self-respect tonight? You know, and you'd be like, no, right? But if ever you're like, well, I guess I could overwork and see if it makes me enough, right? And your boss is like, okay, cool, perfect. So we can't pay you time and a half. We're still going to be paying you regular rate, right? Um, and we can try it, right? And it's part of it, right? It's going to be part of it that these thought forms, we're going to like make huge progress and like slide back into thought forms, right? And then like come out and slide back in, right? Because they're wild, right? So okay, I'm gonna stop talking. Comments, questions, shares, statements. ¿Qué piensan? What do we think? ¿Qué dicen? What do you say? Does this make sense? Is this a big stretch? Does it? Can we kind of see what I'm talking about? Yeah. Yeah. So okay. Do we reset the thought forms we have tentacles with each lifetime? That's a really good question. Yeah, so I think if we were to say something like soul contracts, I think those carry across lifetime, right? If we said something like personality, there probably is some past life stuff, but I think a lot of personality happens from like, in utero, early childhood experiences. Like this is a Ken that exists only here, right? Like, but like the agreements I have with Buddhism, let's say, those might go back several lifetimes. I would say thought forms are moment in time and context specific. So I would say like I might be more susceptible because of what I'm learning on a soul level for certain thought forms. But when I look at different moments in time, um, everything in that story thought form web is unique to its moment in time, unique to its location. Right. And that would be like an example there would be like, it's different to be a man in the Southwest as it is to be a man in the East Coast, in the Bay. Right. Like I need to have way softer hands, to be a man in the Bay. Right. Right. I need to like have way more style and like wear scarves. Oh yes, exactly. A tiny beanie that like you can't even put on your head, right? Like I have to wear scarves regularly, if I want to be a real man. But also like buy used clothes that like shows people I'm like super hard. Like I could do hard labor. I don't, but I definitely could if I wanted to. And I'm like not even in finance or tech. I'm actually in tech finance, which is like a totally different field. It's actually really fascinating if you wanted to talk about this startup I'm in, right? Like, and right, if you take that man and drop him in the South, right, he will quickly have to shift, right? What it means to be a man in Alabama is different, right? Um, so 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 it's really context specific, right? There'll be again like if I zoom out to like the global anchors, both of them are trying to be better than others to be a man, let's say. right? Both of them, it's tied to money somehow, right? To the things they have. But my tiny beanie, or, how much I produce in my farm, right? Like, mm, again, connected to patriarchy, right? Like where we have to distill down a quality, right? But at the surface, it's different. Again, and I'm saying it's actually like time specific moments in time, right? Like 2025, the Bay Area 50 years ago, very different definition of masculinity, right? 100 years ago, 50 years from now, right? Like it changes quite quickly, generationally. I don't know, right? And I've only been to the Bay once, right? So I'm just critiquing them because they're like really easy to critique. Right? Like paper thin person. I'm just really easy read. Um, but it's very, 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 very specific. So I don't think they get carried over across lifetimes too much. Actually, let me just comment that someone said about symbols. Oh, how do the symbols end up in our field? Yeah, so they end up because um really, really zoomed out, right? It's like it's the lesson I'm learning. So really zoomed out would be like maybe even like I was born into this family to explore enoughness in this flavor. I was born into this family, into this body, into this social location to transform my not enoughness into the specific kind of love that I'm here to embody. So there's no mistake. The things that break my heart and I'm here to learn how to love and forgive, they are specific to my soul's purpose. Right? Um, so there's no like brokenness or wrongness in it. But basically, like a couple of things, you can track symbols, right? So like um, I was talking about like when somebody's and you can, right? Like if somebody's in the military or someone's a police officer, right? If someone's a movie producer, photographer, like you often can see a little symbol in their auric space. And that little symbol is connected to a story. Right. And again, if someone was a painter, most of the time they're going to fucking look like a painter. Like they'll have the I'm a painter attitude. I, talk about things in that way, right? Um, Maybe easiest with like yoga, right? Like it's really clear who's the yoga teacher, right? But from the energetic standpoint, right, it's like they um they're trying to fill the mom-shaped hole in their heart with a yoga teacher training. But that yoga teacher training inadvertently has a really specific caricature of being a teacher, a really specific story. Yeah. Right. Like, again, me having a German Shepherd, and we could actually make some pretty accurate assumptions around who I'm going to vote for, what I eat, right? You like, how often do you have steak? I'm like, do you have a German Shepherd? And they're like, yes, right? And I'm like, do you have steak more than twice a week? Right? Like the likelihood that they'll answer that question, right? If someone has maybe we could be like, do you have a golden doodle? If they're like, yes, right? I'm like, are you scared of flies? Right? Do the outdoors worry you and make you feel anxious? Right? Again, directly proportional to like, do you have a German Shepherd? Are you a cop? Right? They're like 1-to-1 ratio. That's hilarious. Right? Right. But if someone has a golden doodle, the likelihood that they have a Prius is goes up exponentially, right? Has a German Shepherd, drives a diesel truck, right? Like again, potentially German Shepherd owns a gun. Golden Doodle has an EpiPen. I'm just I'm really talking shit. Right? Shots fired. I know I need to chill. Right? Is gluten free, right? Like doesn't know what gluten is. Right? Like because they're symbols. And actually, that's why they like German Shepherds, is because they talked their gun. I'm so sorry. I need to chill really. Right? And it's because it's a symbol to them. And their little heart shaped, sorry, mom shaped hole in their heart has a German Shepherd, has a gun that's making them enough. That's why they sleep so cozy with guns. That's when somebody's like, they're gonna take your guns away. They're like, no, I'll never let them take me away, not my baby. And they're like, well, what about your actual baby? And they're like, they need to get up, they need to go to school, right? They're like, don't actually care about their baby, but it's because it's their baby and their gun. 5-year-old them almost feels home with their gun. It almost feels like mom loves them, never left, right? The German Shepherd represents that now, right? Unfortunately, hating brown and black people almost feels like being home and having mom's love, right? Like so that's how deep, and it dissolves under analysis, right? Hating someone because of race, class, color could never produce safety, right? But because of the structures that is, we believe it could, right? And if we were to really ask most of the time, right, like there's just hurt and fear around any kind of prejudice. Yeah. Y'all can disagree with me. Right? I'm not a college professor. I don't know what I'm talking about, right? But all I do is look at energies, right? And try to help people, right? That's the main thing I do in a very one-dimensional way, right? And that's what it looks like to me, right? And to mentors of mine, and to friends of mine. Well, some of these things I haven't run by my mentors, but yeah, that heart-shaped hole is filled, but inadvertently pulls in stories, pulls in potentially these bigger agendas, these bigger global anchors of lots of people trying to be enough, right? So I hope this makes sense. Y'all can tell me if it doesn't. I know I'm giving lots of examples, so I apologize if they're numerous and meandering. Yeah, comments, questions? All right, let's do it. So I got 45 minutes. So we're gonna name a couple of different thought forms. We're gonna like kind of touch them, find them. Again, we're gonna like see their color, their density, story, texture. We're gonna feel where they plug in. We're just gonna recall our energies, give their energies back to do a little bit of separation. And then imagine we can almost put like a little movie screen, or like let the thought form talk to you, however we kind of make sense of it. And we're just gonna ask that thought form like what it's promising us, what its story is. Um, and you might sometimes you can have like one person tell you, you can have an image. Um, some really big ones will get like a little chaotic and just kind of keep separating, keep recalling your energy, giving it its energies back. You can even take a step back if it gets too overwhelming, right? Because if I look at the collective male story across time for all men, right? Like there's a lot of different stories. So what I can do is like step back and look at what one story is, and it'll be a little less overwhelming, right? So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so let's refresh our connections to the earth. Thank y'all for bearing with me. Nice. And let's say hello to the bubble that we made for this course, right? The container. And we're just going to say hello to all of the beautiful energies. Of beautiful support. And just like introduce yourself again to the container. I know we do it every time. And then especially our intentions with this course. I like to always reiterate them. So best case scenario, what we would learn, what we would gain from a class like this, how our authenticity would grow. Learn about how to communicate better, be better friends, partners, co-workers, get less programmed by friends, family, co-workers, society. And of course, always leave space for goals that are really big that we don't even know how to articulate. And then let's just say hello to our personal aura inside of this beautiful bubble. And then it's just like recall our authentic energies, if you're releasing inauthentic energies. Just kind of gently hold any emotions. Release the energies of kind of interactions you've had in the day, the beautiful and the challenging ones. Just like washing over ourselves with earth, water, fire, wind. Mm, just refresh your connection to the earth. I'm just gonna have this as a baseline. What's our 100% in this moment? Nice. Good. And then we're just gonna kind of open up to this range of energies where thought forms are like say most prevalent, easiest to see, where they're really shaping things. Good. And then at that place, we're just gonna open our crown and third eye. We're gonna gently kind of like open a capacity to look at these energies, explore them. We're going to ask our inner wisdom in collaboration with our guides. And as you're opening up the ranges of energy, and allow you to work with these energies, we're just going to ground and imagine we can kind of just start to release any thought forms, any little symbols, any hooks to these stories that are ready to clear. Just let them start releasing down that grounding. As we do that, imagine that it's increasing our space and permission to be authentic. Just gonna gently do that one more time. And if you start to feel any places that there's a little bit of pressure, a little bit of resistance, you can just kind of bookmark that. But one technique is we can just kind of think that resistance. We can just kind of see, notice how much it's trying to help us, how much it's wanting to protect us. Good. And we're just going to practice the technique of recalling our energies from the thought form, from the story, giving it its energies back. Again, recalling energies, giving it its energies back. These are kind of like big, vague, amorphous. And we're just going to kind of move through different layers. And first, again, just kind of refining how we perceive them. So we're going to let ourselves ground. And let's just say hello to like our immediate family. And especially growing up, just kind of see what thought forms we can find. And as you find a thought form or a story, just let yourself kind of see what's its content. Right? What is it geared towards? Say about relationships, about work, about being a good person. And we're just going to recall our energies from that familial thought form. Give it its energies back. And then again, recall your energies. And release. Call and release. Recall and release. Good. And again, we're going to ground. We're going to open our third eye and crown. And just see if you can find the edges of that familial thought form. Like what's its color, its shape, size, the feelings around it. And then as we kind of notice some of those, again, color, quality, texture, density. Make yourself one more time. Recall your energies and give back those colors, qualities, frequencies back to the thought form. Let's ground. And we're just going to say hello to the thought form. And we're just going to see how we can kind of get the content of it. And what's its story? Sometimes they'll be a little squirrely. They're just like, well, you know, XYZ is bad. And you can kind of press them a little bit, right? Like, how is that bad? And then as we go into that story, kind of start to see again, it's a beautiful story. Just gonna see where it doesn't make sense. We feel like we really have the opposite. Like money's bad. And I'm like, well, money can help me do good. the thought form will kind of start to wiggle a little. If and when we got have that little wiggle, just let our subscription to that thought form and the negation of it, I'm just gonna touch. And then let that unplug us from that storm. Again, filling ourselves with authentic energies. Releasing inauthentic energies. Allowing us to gently heal and evolve identity, self-concept. Belief structures. Nice. And then again, we're just going to kind of say hello to that thought form and see that there might be people that are still connected to it. That this thought form is still aligned for them to be learning, exploring, growing with it, through it. We're just going to respect. So we respect and imagine this even a little bit more space, a little bit more permission to unplug from our side. And again, let's gently heal and evolve our crown, third eye, throat, heart, solar plexus, second center, first energy center. And we're really going to scan like the back of our auric space. Stuff can hide back there. We're just going to kind of move to a slightly bigger thought form. So from familial, maybe there's ancestral there, right? Let's imagine we could look at something a little more collective. For fun, pick a workplace, somewhere you're working at now, somewhere where you have worked at, and just look at like the thought forms, stories, expectations at that job. Same thing, recall your energies, give it its energies back. Again, recalling energy and releasing. And we're going to reclaim our whole auric bubble. And one time, just kind of find the shape, the size, the color and frequency. As we're kind of seeing more of its color, texture, quality, how it feels. Imagine that allows you to, with more clarity, to scan your aura for any places where we're subscribed to this energy. And release more energies back to it. again, guided by your inner wisdom, we're going to just gently heal and evolve our crown, third eye, our perceptive abilities, clairvoyance. And then just let yourself kind of go a little bit into that content, right? What's the story of the thought form? What's the promise? Some promises around productivity, around money, just saying hello to those. And then we're just gently release our like matching pictures, our matching energies. Places where this workplace platform connects to early childhood hurt, pain, trauma, unmet needs. Let's open one more time. Let's gently heal and evolve our crown, third eye, throat, heart, solar plexus, second center, first energy center. And then just allowing our inner wisdom connected to earth and universe energies to fill any gaps that we're making by releasing these thought forms. So, of course, filling it ourselves with authentic energies, and also filling ourselves with like our authentic spiritual information, authentic direction, goals. One more time. Bring mental sparkles. Lots of validation, celebration. We're just gonna kind of zoom out a little bit more. Let your inner wisdom be in charge. And owning to our comfort level. But let's say hello to any religions that we grew up with, whether we were a part of them a long time ago, currently. Again, gently to our comfort level, we're just going to look at any thought forms in those institutions. And again, just kind of notice the shape, the size of those thought forms. Intensity slash momentum. Let yourself recall your authentic energies. And then let yourself be releasing anything. Do that a couple times. Individuating from the thought form. And guided by our inner wisdom, we're just going to look at what the story, what the promise, and might be stories around goodness. Just for ourselves. See if there's any places where we can both honor the thought form and see where there might be a gap. Becoming aware of that, so that we can at a deeper level be releasing our matching pictures, our stuck or blocked energies, and some of these, if you feel them in your body, we can bring energies to support. Again, like releasing those tentacle connections, releasing those symbols in our crowns, our aura. Let's free our crown. Third eye, throat, arm, solar plexus, second center, first energy center. Let this gently heal and evolve your identity, self concept, and also our permission to work with this level of subtlety and permission to look at these kind of bigger stories. I'm just going to zoom out one level more. Let's imagine we could look at a collective story, one that we're hooked into, and just let yourself be recalling energies from that collective story. Giving it its energies back. Recalling energies. Giving back. And again, let's just notice like any colors, qualities, textures. Set this just gently can help us heal and evolve our crown, third eye, front and back of our crown, throat front and back, heart front and back, solar plexus front and back, second center front and back, first energy center. Just imagine if we can evolve our whole auric field, our whole identity, our own story. And we're just going to honor this collective bubble. I think really kind of lean into what that story is, how it makes sense, how it's valid. It's very real. I'm just going to notice how maybe for us this thought form doesn't make sense. For us, maybe this thought form is no longer true. And bringing lots of sparkles, lots of validation. We're going to let our inner wisdom and our guides work together. Just going to hand the process over to them and let them continue to gently be releasing thought forms, be gently like healing and evolving our healing and evolving our spiritual information, opening up to greater and greater authenticity. Good. Making more space for discernment and also to be able to coexist with these thought forms. Right? We're not trying to resist them, we're not even trying to change them. We're just trying to create the space for us to get to be free. Perfect. Let's just let this gently heal and evolve our Akashic. One more time. Give me lots of validation, lots of celebration. Big permission for our wholeness to be welcome, all of us. Let's just kind of release the different energy work things that we're doing. Just like let yourself be recalling your energies, many people, places, times. You're releasing other people, places, times, energy back to them. We're going to bring lots of energies to help this integrate, really like re-grounding us into this reality, into this moment in time. One more time, bringing lots of sparkles, lots of validation, lots of celebration. And boom. Okay. Comments, questions, shares. Maybe we went pretty deep. My fear is always that I'll be like muted accidentally. I always worry that like I'll be like, oh, what do you guys think? And then you guys will be like, you're muted. You've been muted for the last 35 minutes. Um, so anyways, it did happen during the last intensive. Wait, what intensive was that even? I don't even remember. Burnout. Oh yeah. Is everyone asleep? So what's going on? Everyone passed out. Not a single person has sent a message. Okay. Got really jammed with the religious one. That's definitely the one to that would jam. Those last two. I just woke up. Okay. Yeah, yeah. We went really deep. So um makes sense. I was deep in there. That was a lot. Yeah. I get that. That's real. The family one was big. The last one was big. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think I mean all of them are jammable, right? But the religious one, I think it's a big one, you know. Did anyone notice any unique textures to them? I kind of shared that for me that religious one has like a really intense um it's like family might tell me a lot of things, the collective might tell me a lot of things. For me, the religious one almost like it's a different direction altogether. Like it's like perpendicular to me almost. Um, something like that. It's very structured. Yeah, yeah. Somebody sharing that like it didn't look like any thought form I had ever seen. It had more structure. It organized religion is very well organized and specific. Yeah. It's not amorphous at all. It's often very clear on who's in, who's out, what being in means, what being out is, right? Like they're clear, you know. Big stuff love being able to feel what textures they are and what sensations they pull up. Yeah, and the idea is like, if like there's like a white, a sharp white, color, and like a reddish hot pressure to my family programming, right? Like the idea is like if I'm talking to somebody and like a reddish energy comes through, or if there's like a red energy at my throat, I might be like, what's coming up? And it might be like my mom's fears are keeping me from being authentic and right? Talking to this person, maybe even like I want to talk to this person, but my mom's people pleasing program is at my throat, right? So we almost want to be able to really quickly like have it be touched, have it like light up what it's connected to, and it just and then really quickly be like, Mom, actually, I learned how to be really kind and gentle because of you. But for me to be really kind and really gentle, I also need to be able to tell the truth because lying isn't going to produce the relationships I wanted. Lying produced some good things. So I learned how to be kind, learned how to be gentle, how to be attentive, how to accommodate people. But if I want my relationships to deepen, I have to be able to tell them the truth. Right. And then this will like, I don't know if anyone felt like that's what happens. That's a technical term. I'm gonna patent that, right? Ken's three-step thought form explosions. All right. But no, next IG reel. That's funny. I know. Uh that's my next one. Although I did one with rocks. I want to do one with pottery next. I just did all of my pottery. I filmed little videos of me repotting all my plants in pots I made. But anyways, the family felt so like it's dragged me for so long. Like discolored but heavy. There's info to that, right? Like I don't think it's important to kind of like read into it too much, but it's much more like if you feel yourself being weighed down and doled, it's probably familial stuff, right? For me, if I feel like a reddish pressure, I might be people pleasing, right? If there's energy that's like too bright, there might be a program that like I'm supposed to be happy all the time, that I'm supposed to be chipper and like not make anyone sad, right? Like that's it's much more that, right? Like yeah. So so I think discolored and heavy. That's that's spot on. And then like finding discolored and heavy in your crown, third eye, front back, right? Throat, shoulders, heart, tummy, right? Kind of scanning for for that next subtle layer of our subscription. See? Well, this is a big one. Definitely play with this. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Somebody just said deep stuff. Speed, absolutely. Speed and momentum. Um, for me, like the religious programming has like a really big momentum, right? But let's say like man story stuff for me, right, has a lot of speed. Like it's quick. It's just like do this, do this. Oh, cool. Someone shared like pressurized and urgent. Yes. And that urgency might be what hooks me into it, right? Like my urgency might be like it might be my own fear hooking me into it, but it's also an urgent program. That's like, I have examples of that. Like, um, and this is true. I've like I can't really watch movies or TV. Um, I used to not be able to be on my phone. Now I can be on my phone. Fucking somehow I healed that pattern. I can scroll for hours, right? And so I joke around a lot about watching Netflix. It is actually just a joke. I'm not able to watch Netflix. Um, and it's actually because of like how much my lineage and like ancestors, like how many people like died really young. And like and somehow on some level they were like, your days are counted. And so like do something meaningful with this life. Like don't waste your life. And so there's an urgency in my nervous system, but there's an urgency in my lineage. And they just right? So I'm watching TV and I get fucking antsy. I'm just like, freedom. you know, I'm like, I gotta go. I'm gonna read a book, right? Like I have to learn, and I can't watch TV if it's educational because my body experiences that as meaningful, but just entertainment. triggers that, right? So it could be both like an internal urgency and it's external, but I would look at like how they're matching, right? And then I would just say like, again, to this program, like the way I would articulate this would be like, our days are counted, and I'm going to die too young no matter what. Everyone dies too soon. No one ever dies, and they're like, no, that's just right. You're just like, no, no, that was the right amount of life, right? It's always too soon, grandma. It's always too soon, right? Ancestors. But if I don't get to rest, I won't get to really like suck the marrow from this life. I won't get to really live, right? And I can then honor my own urgency and fear and honor this familial ancestral urgency and fear and start to replace it with it's because I will die too young and too soon that I must rest so I can make it the most meaningful, right? And so now the whole thing's jumbled, right? So okay. It's really interesting to see that as much as I hate the American dream, ooh, yeah, the American dream's like, that's right, shh. That's right, Dad. It's capitalism's bullshit. And it's just like, anyways, I was thinking what we could buy with our paycheck this week. Yeah. Just rocking us to sleep. I love that so much. Maybe super random question, but do entities ever work with thought forms? Can they wield thought forms as weapons? No. Um, it's kind of opposite. Thought forms have entities, in my opinion. Maybe you can. Entities are a little bit more opportunistic. Maybe like archetypes. Archetypes can maybe produce thought forms, though. There are beings big enough. It seems like they can kind of co-create thought forms. And that's because actually gods and archetypes have agendas. Like they have direction, they have momentum, hopes and dreams. And then also like, so thought forms are what's congealed around an entity though. But the entity doesn't produce them. But an entity, God, and we're getting weird, sorry you guys, but an entity might have a lot of other people's self-talk, right? And so like if an entity kind of like steps into our space, there might be like the last 10 people that this entity has fucked around with. All of their self-talk is like swimming around. But but it dissolves under analysis, right? So they're just like, you suck, you're the worst. And I'm like, I know. I actually feel like pretty proud of I am the best at being the worst, aren't I? And they're like, you're gonna fail. And I'm like, I try a lot of different things. Failure's inevitable, am I right? You know, and the entity is gonna be like start to look tired. They're like, fuck this guy, right? They're like, let's get him to self-sabotage. And I'm like, no, for sure. I'm gonna procrastinate, but I'm gonna procrastinate my procrastination. I promise to procrastinate tomorrow. I just gotta get these things done, but I'll procrastinate. You know, you start self-sabotaging the self-sabotage and the entities fucking kick rocks quick, they're just like, ah, God, this sucks. Right. Right. Like if the negative self-talk, we take it in and force it to nourish us, right? If it's like you're a piece of shit, and we translate that into this opportunity to truly open our heart to who we could be for others, then like the thought forms, they're on the ropes, right? like they gotta go or they're gonna be done. And similarly with the entity, like they won't be able to stay long, So I do really believe self-talk, like a positive self-concept, like really like legit kind self-talk is there's kind of nothing's a match for that, right? Like the worst professional curses if we like ground and align ourselves with like who we want to be. I don't know. Yeah, it can't really do much. And we waver, right? Like there's periods of my life the last like 6 months of 2024 were like probably one of the hardest times of my life, to be honest. And but yeah, you just kind of keep going. So it'll be tough moments, right? But that self-talk, if it's if it can respond, and again, if I can be attacked by thought forms and I can slowly work my way to analyze them until they dissolve, right? Like taking a really big bite out of a bison steak, right? Like that's well done, right? And very chewy, right? Like just keep chewing, just keep going. Don't stop, right? You're gonna choke if you stop or spit it out and not get invited out no more. you know, just keep chewing, just keep going. So yeah, but entities are chill, to be honest. I think a lot of people, if an entity steps into our space, there it's gonna be really easy. Definitely don't go out fighting entities. Don't go looking for fights. You know, like our we can work with anything. And if we can't work with it, we can certainly negotiate with anything. And then if we can't negotiate with anything, we certainly can like agree to disagree and like draw a line in the sand to be like, fine, you can eat the people that you have agreements to eat, but don't come to my side of town then. Right. And they'll be like, fine. And I'm like, fine. Like, fuck you. I'm like, fuck me, fuck you, entity. Right. So it's like there's ever increasing um tools that we need to have in our toolkit. So don't pick fights with nobody, right? Because you can make messes. Everything can be undone, but you can make messes. Um, but I'll say like if an entity is in our space, generally speaking, like it's gonna be an easy process. If you work with a qualified practitioner to get them out. And stop doing the thing that maybe got them there in the first place. And or work with the thought forms and support lineage healing, right? Like it's cake. It's easy. It's easy. Yeah. Anyways. So hopefully that didn't trigger anybody. But yeah, anyways, thank you everybody for being here. This course is like super, super, super precious. I'm super excited. And it's small too. I'm happy. I'm happy it's not too big, right? This stuff can get like unwieldy when we're this subtle, and it can get a little tense when we're so zoomed out. So I'm happy we're doing it. Yeah. All right, everybody. Good luck out there. I'll see you next week. I'll upload this class promptly. And please let me know if you guys don't have access to the Kajabi, but hopefully everyone does now. All right, yeah. Talk to you soon. Bye.